All right, guys, thanks for watching. This week, we bring on the former owner of the AFC and now, again, the current owner of the Alaska Fighting Championship, Miss Sarah Lorimer. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and here it is.
Hitting Glover in the face like that and him not going down, I don't know what that does to your confidence. I'm not a fighter, but I've seen it 100 times where you're winning the rounds 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And when that 5th round came up and he got the takedown, Glover got the takedown, and I was just like, please let this happen.
Yes, please.
Like, I'm like screaming at the TV, please let this
internally,
happen.
like I'm rooting for Glover. Like I was never a huge Glover fan,
right?
But like now, you watch Shogun retire earlier in the night when he probably should have retired a long time ago.
Yes.
But you root for him. You're like, I just want to see him go out. Like the last of the Pride guys, like a completely different generation. Glover's kind of like that too. So you're watching Glover kind of get beat up for all 5 rounds. Like he has his moments, of course.
Yep.
But then like the round before that, or a couple rounds before that, he's like taking these head kicks, like baseball bat head kicks.
Yeah, and he just kept coming forward, and that's what I don't understand. It was so back and forth. Second round, I think, was definitely my favorite round of that fight. It was so back and forth. But I don't know if you know this or not, but Glover was Chuck Liddell's secret weapon.
Yes.
So I knew Glover back in the day when the pit, was around, and so you hear him, John Hackelman. I don't know if it was, I think it was between round 4 and 5, and they're like, Hackelman's like, stop the fight.
Yeah, he wanted to.
He wanted him to stop the fight, and they like cleaned him up. Doctor comes, oh yeah, we're good. And I'm like, the guy can't see out of his eyes.
Yeah.
Like
which is
like
crazy.
Stop the fight to me. But it was a title fight.
Yeah.
He didn't want the fight stopped. He wanted to continue, and I respect that. But also, these fighters can't intelligently also defend themselves. Even in the Lauren Murphy fight, that's what I kept saying is like round 2, in my opinion, it should have been stopped.
It could have been stopped.
Yeah, and okay, they all say, oh, she's just tough as they come. But at what expense?
That's not like a great thing though. And they were saying on the broadcast, right? If we're spending the whole fight talking about how tough you are, well, that's bad. Like
exactly.
You're just maybe too tough for your own good is like the least
to give up. And that's the issue that I have with it is that these fighters' careers are only so long.
Yeah.
And to continually take a beating like that when it's unnecessary, in my opinion, that's why I did. I mean, I love Lauren. She's one of my good friends. That fight was just brutal. It was brutal for everybody watching it. And I do think there's no shame in stopping a fight within reason. She had every opportunity to defend herself. I kind of felt like that with Glover too. But then Glover's pulling it out in the 5th round. He's coming on top and he's in full mount. I'm like, he's gonna take the. I'm like, this is over. It's over, and it's not. So,
I was rooting for him too in that 5th round, and like I said, when he had his moments, I was rooting for him because same thing. Like he's like on the last of a certain generation.
Yep.
And like you'll probably never see Hackelman in a corner again.
No, and he wasn't even actually in his corner.
Yeah.
He was like out in the crowd, and they went and grabbed him, and you could hear him saying, stop the fight.
Yeah.
Stop
Can
the
we
fight.
stop the fight?
We need to stop the fight. And technically, in the unified MMA rules, there's no towel throwing.
Yeah, there's no towel throwing, right?
But,
which is weird. But they still have, right?
People do it, and if you feel that they're in danger, all I can hear is in Lauren's fight is I can hear Joe, giving her and to stay calm like that when your husband's in your corner, and I have so much respect for them and where she's came from, back to Lauren. I'm just so proud of her. I mean, no matter if I saw her getting her ass beat on live TV or winning a fight, it doesn't matter to me. And her good friend Aurora, she had posted a picture of her and said, from the trenches to the mountains, I'll always be here with you. And that's kind of Lauren's story.
No, for sure.
And that's what I love about Lauren is she has such a amazing come up story in the MMA. And I don't know a lot of the modern Alaskan MMA fans if they really know Lauren's story.
I don't think they do. So, and if they don't, then Lauren, started out in the AFC, like started out fighting here locally in Alaska, went on to fight in other promotions, was the Invicta champion. Went over to UFC after that and it's been top 10 for a while. Was on the Ultimate Fighter show. And if you haven't seen that season, it was pretty funny.
It was a good.
Yeah, and kind of some things at Lauren's expense, like Eddie Alvarez calling her Barb, and like it has a highlight. And then even in the post-fight interview with her, I think Joe Rogan called her Barb. Real quick, and he's like, "Oh, sorry."
But she handled that so eloquently, in my opinion, and she just ate it up. And that's what Lauren. She's so well spoken, and I was so proud of her. I'm like watching her interview and stuff, and you got to watch that season if you haven't watched that season. But I think a lot of Alaskans don't understand that we do have a huge for how small our state is and how limited gyms and training that we have.
Definitely.
That's what's so cool about it is to see Jared Cannonier come out of here and Lauren Murphy come out of here and many others. But those are just two right now that are.
But a lot of the other ones, like they don't make it to that level. Like back to Lauren, like Invicta champion, Ultimate Fighter. On the winner was gonna be the 125-pound champion.
Yep.
Valentina is obviously the champion and probably will be for forever. But then she goes and fights Valentina very recently. And so she's been a title challenger in the UFC, a title holder in other organizations.
Yep.
So, I mean, you have a bad fight and it could have been like travel. It could have been dieting over there. But you're fighting in Rio against a hostile crowd, against like a girl who's top 10, if not top 5 in multiple weight divisions.
Right.
Like she just fought and got the win over Lauren last night. But she's calling for a title shot back at 115.
Yep.
And you just win at 125. I think she's just ready at anywhere. So I mean,
115. I know. That's just hard for me to believe. I mean, she's huge.
She's huge. Though.
She's huge.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what her weight cut's like, but I mean, just standing next to Lauren, Lauren at least has probably a few inches on her, I would say.
Yeah. But maybe not like weight. Like she's Andrade is thick. Like thick. Even Bill last night was talking about like tree trunk legs and all this. And she's massive.
She chopped down her lead leg within the first 2 minutes of the fight.
Yeah.
And you could see, I mean, right off the bat, the damage that was done. And she just kept doing it, and Lauren wasn't checking those kicks.
Yeah.
And, it was funny. I'm like, check the kicks. I'm like screaming at her. And then about 2 seconds later, the commentator's like, Lauren's really going to need to check those kicks.
And
then her legs bright red,
Yeah.
My husband's like looking at me like, shut up. Because I'm like screaming at the TV.
Yeah, I can't shut up. This is big. This is like Alaskan fighters doing amazing things. And back to the Alaskan fighters thing, like, we're a big state, but a small population.
Yep.
And on the stats for her, it said 1 of 7 fighters from Alaska in UFC history.
Yep.
Like when Figueiredo walks out, he's just 1 of 7 current Brazilian featherweights
on the roster
or flyweights. Yeah, on the roster right now.
Yeah.
Like so, like that's how Alaska's like a different country to them. Like not many people come out. Like last week we had the Mitchell brothers on, and AFC champions, maybe a champion at Ace, another promotion here in Alaska. And then like Terrence was on the 125-pound champion season Ultimate Fighter. So like we get fighters that are making it to these levels, but not title fight levels. Not like Killer Gorilla fighting for a title against Israel, like possibly in talks to be the GOAT one day.
Yep.
Or fighting Valentina, who probably the same thing, like one of the lady GOATs eventually.
Yep.
But to get to a title fight, it's big. Like when I first started like getting into MMA and getting into like that whole scene, like locally we had like big names, like there was like Rob Young, and there was like guy and like Ricky Shivers,
Seth Skogstad. You got
they were getting there. They're getting that level, and maybe didn't have like great showings in the UFC. Had a couple fights, and then they were done, and it was just like, man, like that's just not what Alaska has to offer. Like it's better than that. But then like you get these couple people that come in and like go all the way and doing that, and like. So after that fight, there's going to be a big mountain to climb back up, especially in like the 115 and 125-pound division. So at 125 for Lauren, this is a big mountain to climb back up. There's hungry girls coming back in there, Andrade being one of them.
Yep.
So then you just lost to possibly the top 2 girls in the division, but you're probably still top 5 at a minimum, still top 10. But you still have to go through those 2 girls
to get back up there.
To get there, where like in Jared Cannonier's case, like you're right there, and you're gonna be there. Like I don't remember who his next fight's gonna be against. But I thought they mentioned something, but just came off the win over Sean Strickland, and like so now you're staying in top 5.
Yep.
And with Pajero winning, like you have another shot now.
Right.
So I mean, one more win,
it's coming.
maybe.
Yeah, it's coming.
It'd be great to see like Marvin Vittori versus him. Like,
that would actually
2 big guys.
Yep.
That'd be really good.
Yeah, and I think Jared is where he's at. Jared's not going weight division wise. He finally found his home, and it just took him a little time to get there.
Yeah.
But I think now that he's there, he's got the right people around him, and just in my opinion, he will be champion. I truly believe it.
I believe it too.
And I believe that just because Lauren's her age and maybe she started a little bit later than the average fighter, I think Lauren still has a shot. But Lauren just has to get back to the drawing board, take some time off and analyze what happened and go back at it. And that's exactly what she said with Valentina. So I can't wait to see her back in there after she gets healed up. And
I can't wait to. And then for like the backstory on Lauren Murphy, like, and the later in age thing, like she only got into like jujitsu or like training because one of her kids she brought for a kids class.
Yeah. So how it happened with Lauren is Lauren was a drug addict.
Yeah.
And she got sober. And her son Max, she thought, oh, this would be a healthy thing thing to, so she takes her kid over. It was when it was Gracie Baja.
Yeah.
And takes him into Gracie Baja when Ted Stickle was the professor there. And her son started training. And then she's like, yeah, I'll try it. She jumps in with him and I'll try it, and got into it. Mm-hmm. And then it was like out of nowhere, she's like, I want to fight. So I never heard of her. Like, it was just kind of like, well, let's get this girl in here and get her a fight. And that's usually how it goes, especially with the women. They take a few classes.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of super experienced women up here in Alaska. There's getting more, but back then when Lauren started to fight, I mean, we didn't even have women's champions. That was like back when UFC didn't even allow women to fight, which is crazy. Like, I remember Dana specifically saying on TV, women will ever fight in the UFC, and then this Invicta promotion came along and gave the women the opportunity to have the next step, from the regional promotions up to a women's organization. Yeah. So when Lauren won the belt with AFC, she got a call to go fight for Invicta, and Invicta was the kind of the gatekeeper for UFC.
Yeah,
so,
and especially like when UFC wasn't even allowing women, like Invicta was like the top of the top for women fighting.
Yep.
Like if you were, it was kind of like WEC for like the lighter weight classes, right?
Strikeforce. So Strikeforce was along the Gina Carano was with Strikeforce. So that was like the first that we really saw women fighting.
Yeah.
And I mean, I saw the thing on the gloves last night, like 30 years, and like, it freaks me out because I started watching UFC at year 2. Yeah. And so I was 12 when I started watching UFC, and I'm like, it's been 30 years. I mean,
we're a long time.
Yeah, we're coming up on 20 years for AFC.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy to me that it's been around that long, because back then, I mean, I had a fair booth. We'd set up the fair booth for AFC, and we'd play fights over again and let people stop by and watch them. And you'd see the wives like dragging their husbands away from the TV screen, like, yo, don't watch that. That's terrible, And then years go by, and it's like 5 years. Oh, all of a sudden now the wives are kind of sitting there like watching with their husbands, and like now we have a crowd of like 50-50, and it's a sport. It's a thing. It's not going anywhere.
And women train now. Like, there wasn't like a big crowd for women like way back when. Like I said, like AFC said 20 years ago.
Almost 20,
Like I think I was in the AFC like 13 or 14 years ago.
That's crazy.
And even then, like it was like AFC like in the 40s number, right? It was, and it was just like the Wild West. It was crazy. It was like just started out, like just in general, it was just
that was about the time I took over, because I took over, I think it was AFC 32 or 33 would have been my first show that I put on. So it's been a long ride ever since, and it's gonna continue to be a long ride. And
back on the ride now.
Yeah,
right?
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's great. So you started taking over in the 30s somewhere around. So like I'd imagine like 2005-ish?
2007.
Okay.
2007. Mm-hmm. So 2007, my dad and I.
You guys are just pumping them out then, because I think I was in the 40s, but it was 2000 and maybe 8.
Yep.
And then it was like
we're doing 10 events a year. Yeah, we're doing 10 events a year originally, or 8 to 10. And then we're still I try to keep 8 to 10 events per year.
Yeah.
But so it started 2007.
And then you ended up selling it. Right?
I did. I sold it in 2019. Mm-hmm. So I was diagnosed with MS. I got really sick. And I ran AFC for about 5-6 years. But I was
dealing with that.
Mm-hmm, trying to do it both at the same time.
Can we get into that? Like, what does MS entail? Like, so, it's one of those ones. Like, I feel like, at least me personally, like I've heard of it plenty of times, and I know a couple of people. Like, one guy used to work with his wife, and some other people like know people through people with it. Yeah. But not one of those ones like it's so mainstream, like to where, at least mainstream in my opinion of what it would be considered, but to not know like all like what it entails.
Yep. So MS is just so it's an they think it's an autoimmune disease. Mm-hmm. My neurologist doesn't think it is. He thinks it's an immune response, but it's an autoimmune disease that attacks your central nervous system. Okay. So that's going to be your brain, your spine, and your optic nerve.
Okay.
And what happens is you have these rogue cells that kind of cross the blood-brain barrier. They get in there, and then they attack the myelin sheath that's around your nerve. Mm-hmm. And you kind of think of it like a wire, just like an electrical wire. Okay. And so if it gets a little cut in it, there's no connectivity, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what happens is your immune system actually attacks the myelin sheath, and it creates connectivity issues. Yeah. So anything that your brain or your spine or your optic nerve controls, which is your whole body, it can affect. Okay. So every single MS patient is different because they have attacks in different areas of their brain, spinal cord, and optic nerve, and the different areas, your brain controls different things. Yeah. So my first, it took 2 years to get diagnosed. I was very sick for a couple years. well, I mean, it's still sick, but managing it now.
Yeah.
But sick without knowing what was going on.
Okay.
And so we just were like trying to figure it out. And, as you know, I was the one that ran the AFC. Yeah. I had a lot of volunteers and a lot of people that helped me along the way. But like, if I couldn't run it, we weren't having shows. That's kind of where we were at. So I had taken on, Misty. So Naptime Nick had fought for me and stuff. And Misty, his wife, was my like right-hand woman, kind of going along. And so she helped out a lot and stuff, me going through this. And we started talking, hey, are you guys interested in taking this over in the long, because we didn't know once I got diagnosed, it's like, okay, this is a debilitating disease and we don't know how fast it's going to happen. And it got scary, real scary because I was having, mobility issues and I was having a lot of, finding my words, my short-term memory. There's a lot of cognitive issues that come along with MS. So
I bet not even like to know what's coming next. Like this is just what's happening right now.
Yeah, the unpredictability on top of it was, and so we'll get into, I'll like explain a little bit at the end about that, but just not knowing what's going to happen. And so the constant like worrying and everything. And then you have this little thing happen. You're like, oh, is it going to get worse? And the big thing was me getting around. You know, when I had an attack, my whole right side of my body was completely numb and I couldn't even get around.
Yeah.
And so that part was like super scary. And I knew at that point, stress can aggravate it, make it worse. Heat can actually aggravate it, make it worse. And AFC is like, I tried to explain it to people, is like you're on a roller coaster. Mm-hmm. So every single month I was on a roller coaster. You build up to this fight, you build up, and then you get about a week off, but you got to go right back into it. So I was constantly on this emotional roller coaster when it came to fights, and dealing with a few hundred fighters is very challenging.
I bet.
To say the least. So it's very stressful. Your phone rings constantly. I was never able to even just, cut off myself from my phone. And then it always relied on me. So if I wasn't there, if I was in the hospital, fights wouldn't continue. And it happened. It's happened where I wasn't able to do a weigh-in, or, it's like right before fight time. And like my health is my priority, you know, my health for my family is my priority. Yeah. So taking care of myself took precedence. And so we kind of positioned Nick and Misty. And I'll never forget, it was getting ready for the season in 2019. It was in September. Actually, it might have been 18 or 19. I don't remember what year it was, but whatever it was, I think it might have been 18. It was 18. I'm like putting on my makeup and I couldn't get my like makeup on. Yeah. My hand wasn't working. And I'm like sitting there telling myself to like put my makeup on. It was the first show of the opening season for that year. And I got mascara all over my face. Yeah. Like I couldn't control my hands. And I'm like, I'm done. Yeah. I called my husband, I'm bawling. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. I was like, I can't run this thing anymore. And so it was a real hard pill to swallow because this is my life. Yeah. I mean, fights have been my life since I was very young. And then in my adulthood, it's like it became my job. Yeah. And that's, I did a lot for this sport in Alaska, and
no, for sure.
I want to continue the legacy. And that's why I'm sitting here with you right now, is because it didn't work out. So I sold it to Nick and Misty. People think you can just do this with your eyes closed.
No.
And it's not like that. I have nothing but love for Nick and Misty, but they couldn't hack it. Yeah. They couldn't hack it. They thought they can hack it. They couldn't. So I took it back because we got everything hanging in the balance right now. Yeah. We don't know if we're going to continue on our UFC Fight Pass deal. I mean, we just still don't know. We got a lot of exciting things coming up, but there was a lot of damage done while I wasn't at the helm of it. So taking it back, getting it restructured, getting the thing back on track. All the meanwhile, while I did this is, and the reason that I'm taking it back is because I have an amazing sister. To make a really long story short, I sold the fights. Yep. I was super depressed, not doing anything. My kid went off to college, and I had nothing to do, and I felt like I didn't have purpose. Yeah. So, I wasn't getting out of bed every day. It was just, I was depressed, and my husband's like, you need to get off your ass and figure something out to do because I'm not going to deal with this, you know? I'm still young. I still should be able to work. So my health got better. Make a long story short, I found cannabis. Nice. Cannabis made my life so much better with MS.
Does it help the MS directly in any way, or is it just easier to kind of cope with it and deal with it, take stress off?
So I think what I think about cannabis. So backstory about cannabis, I was super against it. Mm-hmm. Growing up, I was way against it. I was always bitching at the fighters, don't be smelling like this. Don't be doing this. This is the devil's lettuce, and you guys are drug addicts. You know. So, but everybody can change. So as I got sick, my sister was like, you need to try this. Well, I went on a 2-week bender and not sleep. Yeah. I didn't sleep. I was just so, overwhelmed with everything that was going on. And I tried it. and I slept for 2 days.
And then you slept.
And I was like, okay, I can get off these 9 medications that I'm on, and we can slowly start phasing out. Because I was on all sorts of pharmaceuticals. You get diagnosed, and they're like, take this, you need this, you need this.
And
now
do
you
this
feel like
with
this because now you got to take this because this side effect.
Because you
from
feel
this.
like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So I was on sleeping pills, antidepressants, anxiety medication. I mean, I was on a whole gamut of things that just made me a zombie, and I wasn't myself.
A whole gang of things that cause depression and cause anxiety.
That's right.
And cause the lack of being hungry and all that and making you not sleep. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah, put you on Prozac, but the side effect of Prozac is wanting to kill yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like I've never felt that way in my life. And then when I started feeling suicidal or like this isn't good, I'm like there is something wrong with this medication.
Then they're like, no, there's not. We just have something for that medication.
Yeah, we're gonna fix that, and we're gonna give you this.
Keep taking that though.
Yeah. So I flew down to my neurologist in Seattle, and he's like, "You're on like 5 medications you shouldn't even be on. Let's get you off this stuff. Let's, he's like an 80-year-old neurologist. He's like, if this makes you feel better, do it." So what I think cannabis does, I think that it can help with the uncertainty of what's to come. Like I think it helps with I think it helps with anxiety. I also think it helps with depression, and I know for a fact it helps with sleep.
Yeah.
Because the area of my brain that was affected on one of my relapses I had is I have insomnia, severe insomnia.
Yeah.
So I'll go for days on end not sleeping. And that's not good for anybody.
No.
So what I don't consume during the day, and if I'm consuming, I'm at home.
Yeah.
I'm not someone who's running around, just like I wouldn't be on any other pain pills or anything else.
Yeah.
I'd be at home. So if I'm sick and I'm consuming, I'm at home. But primarily I use it at night for sleep, as a sleep aid, and many other things. I think there's lots of other things that can help you, but it takes your mind off of the pain.
Yeah.
I don't know if it actually cures the pain, but I do know that it takes your mind off the pain, and I get such severe numbness that to me it's considered pain.
Yeah.
It actually hurts from being numb.
Yeah.
I have numbness in my right leg all the time. These 3 fingers are completely numb all the time.
Yeah.
And you start to forget about it, and then you'll kind of think of it every once in a while, and then maybe it is painful, maybe it's not, but the numbness can be painful. My skin hurts all the time.
Yeah.
So like even to the touch. So it's hard to get massages and things like that because of what has happened. So you just get all kind of weird symptoms. Optic neuritis. I lost some of my vision. We think that I've lost some of my hearing.
Yeah.
It hasn't been confirmed. But there's lots of, because and then you have to your brain has to find these different pathways to do those things. Like I couldn't even write my name. So it's like you got to learn how to do that again. And it's kind of like having a stroke, recovering, but think about having strokes all the time and then having to recover from it. So the name of the game is have as little relapses as you can possibly have.
Yeah.
I'm on the latest, greatest disease modifying drug. I get infusions every 6 months. It's called Ocrevus. I'm doing amazing.
Yeah.
And so when all this was kind of going down, I'm like, I'm taking it back.
Yeah.
I'm taking it back. I can do this. I opened a cannabis shop with my sister.
Nice. What's that called?
It's called Country Cannabis.
It's
in Palmer.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's like actually right when you go to the valley, it's the first shop you come to on the left-hand side. So it's not in the town of Palmer.
Yeah.
Like in city limits, but we're just right outside, across from the hospital on the other side of the.
Okay, so as you're going down the highway, on the left-hand side, if you're heading to
the Trunk Road exit, we're in a colony barn, original colony barn, with the big silo on it. So my sister came to me and because I was just bummed, she goes, "This is in between me not having the fights anymore," and she said, "Do you want to open up a cannabis shop?" I'm like, "No, I am not ready to come out for this." Like I was very private about it.
I just started.
Yeah, like I'm nervous about it, and and even just people knowing, it's because it's still kind of this like black eye, and like people judge you, oh, you're a pothead and you're a stoner, and I think that there's just still a little bit of a negative connotation to it. So
I think it's like it's still like kind of folding over from like the older generation, like to where it was like frowned upon, like severely. Like if you were in high school or something, like it was the devil's lettuce for sure.
Yep.
But then like that high school generation, well now we're getting into the older generation and it's becoming acceptable. The older generation's kind of cycling out as not just with cannabis, but like tons of other things, right?
Right.
And then so now like what was frowned upon or just wasn't like in that great light, all these different things are kind of coming out like, oh, this is all right now. And then they're getting into like mushrooms. They're getting into like, there's like a ketamine thing in Alaska now. Like,
there's all sorts of crazy stuff.
Crazy.
Yeah. And I'm fine with it as long as there's research behind it.
Yeah.
And what I don't like is that I had to sit there and experiment on myself
before
it was even legal and I could go to the store and buy a certain dosage.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm buying. I'm meeting Joe in the back parking lot with some bag of weed that I don't know anything about. So I think that the legalization of it and the regulation of it is what has pushed it to where it's at now. And I'm completely comfortable now walking into a cannabis shop and knowing my dosage. I don't smoke it. I eat it. I eat oil. And that's how I dose myself. Mostly fully extracted cannabis oil is what I consume. And that's what I recommend if people are using it medicinally. Alaska is a recreational state, so we cannot claim any medical benefits and we can't sell it to you medically. But we know that it helps medically. I mean, we know it does. And so it's just, we're kind of at a weird space right now. And I can say, well, my experience is, but I see a lot of people, we have people in their 60s, 70s, 80s that maybe tried it back in the 60s or 70s, are coming back around to it because of aches and pains and all this pain pill epidemic that we're dealing with. A lot of people don't want to take opiates. And so they come in looking for another alternative.
For good reason, too.
Absolutely.
Oof. If you ever seen Intervention, that should be everything to just not try opiates right there.
And a lot of the older generation, they're going through cancer, they're going through all, different, I'm talking 60, 70, 80. So they come from the hospital, come across our store, and they're like, hey, they prescribed us this, they prescribed us that. And, we could just say, well, these might help you sleep or this might make you feel a little bit better. But, we can't give any medical advice. And but at least it's available, it's tested, and we have the capability to sell it to people in a dosed, regulated amount. So that's when I was like, okay, I'll get behind this. I can understand this. And, we help all different walks of life. And if you want to consume it recreationally, that's your business. And I think that you should be able to, just like if somebody wants to go have a beer. I was never a big drinker. I was never really a big anything. I smoked cigarettes like a banshee and I quit about, it's been 12 years now. And I'm thankful I did, but that was I didn't get on the vape train. I didn't get on any of that. So I try to not have something that I'm relying on. And that's what I love about cannabis is I could have it one day. And 3 weeks later, have it again and not need it.
So I was also kind of in the same, and even like what you're saying about, being so stressful, like from the fights and everything having to go on and dealing with 200 fighters. I was in the same position with the old job I had. So I took a stint off from not on the AFC, but from my old job and being in Alaska. I moved to Florida for a year, came back, kind of had a nice life reset. But I moved there because the spot I was in at work, it was just so crazy. And I had I felt anyways, I had the entire company on my back and doing this. In the wintertime, we did commercial snow removal. In the summertime, we did commercial and residential paving and construction. And in the wintertime was the worst because we'd have, you'd have over 100 employees and most of them are shovelers. And these people only shovel for a living. So they only shovel a few months of the year and they go back to who knows what they're doing. But and they all have your phone number. So they're constantly calling you. You couldn't turn it off. I was having these crazy dizzy spells where I'd be walking around the store. I would just this a little flash in my head would happen and I would just be dizzy. I'd feel like I was intoxicated or kind of high in the store, and it would last for an unknown amount of time. I was having chest pains, let alone just not being able to get away from my phone. I had my phone, I lived my phone on vibrate or silent just because I didn't want to hear it ring. I turned it over so I wouldn't see it light up.
Same. I still do it to this day. I still do it to this day.
And I know I don't have to now, but it's such a habit. I just look at them ugh, I'm just going to turn it down. So moved and then, finally got back to a good spot. We're let's go back and let's do this. And, decided not to kind of try to necessarily pursue going back into that profession. And maybe a little bit here and there. Right now I'm plowing for them just to have something to do because same thing, you were sitting at home, I was what am I doing? I'm just sitting here. I can do something. So I found real estate luckily to do that. But now real estate's kind of slow. So I was I need something to do. I can't just sit here. I'm just going insane sitting here. So I went back and now I plow for them and do that. But I was also, just to relate a little more, I was also against cannabis for a long time. So I've had my CDL for, over a decade. And even though it's legal in the state, it's still federally illegal, right? So. And
it's not legal for DOT,
Exactly.
So my husband's a Fed, so it's a very funny dynamic here. He's a pretty high level Fed with USDA. And his wife owns a weed shop, so it's kind of and they see me and they're like, "What? She, a cannabis shop? It's just not, I'm like a soccer mom." But what's weird is that my kid's 21 now, so I don't know if you remember seeing her around at the fights and stuff, but that's why I bought the fights. I bought the fights because I was a mortgage broker. And I was advertising with the fights. And they said, hey, we're thinking about selling it. I knew nothing about running a fight promotion. I knew business, but I didn't know anything about running a fight promotion. And I said, well, why not? Let's do it. But the problem was I was working 12-hour days. I wasn't seeing my kid. I had other people raising my child. I was a single mom. And I bought the fights thinking, okay, well, maybe this can work into a full-time gig with the fights, and I can bring her with me, and we have more flexibility.
Yeah.
And I have my summers with her and stuff. And so ultimately, that's what ended up happening. I met my husband a couple years later, and he supported my decision to get out of the mortgage business, which was stressful in its own right.
Yeah.
In the 2008 era when everything was crashing,
It was a crash,
and
yeah.
it was nuts. So I went full-time AFC, and that was the best decision I ever made in my life.
Yeah.
And I always say AFC never made me rich, but I was able to. I'm passionate about what I'm doing. Plus, gave me the ability to bring my daughter with me everywhere, and she got to see me work my ass off.
Yeah.
And now in turn, she's motivated. She's a little entrepreneur in her own right. She's finishing up college here. She'd be done with college in a year and a half, and getting her marketing degree. And she's taken sports marketing. And after having exposure with the UFC, it got her really excited about that. So I think everything happens for a reason, and that fell into my lap at that time. And I think every twist and turn in your life points to something else. And they're like, "How did you become a fight promoter?" Well, it's not really that exciting of a story, but here I am, and it's just like cannabis. I'm not a cannabis expert. I never claimed to be a cannabis expert, but whatever I do at 100%, and I try to go in there and learn about whatever I am doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what will make you successful in the end. And I mean, we got voted the Valley's best retail in our second year of business. I'm very proud of that.
Nice.
My sister and I have worked our asses off and got that going. And we have some other cool things that are coming.
Yeah.
But back to the fights.
Yeah.
What's so cool about it is that, so I took it back, and there's this email in my inbox, and I've always kept a Alaska Fighting email because I was still kind of helping Nick and Misty, trying to help them. So I kept an email, and I get this email punched through, and it's the producer I'd worked with 10 years prior on a reality show.
Yeah.
I'd worked on an AFC reality show for 15 years. I worked with 3 different producers. We got all the way, the first one, we got all the way to the end. We were going to be filming it. It was with the History Channel. We're really excited. And then right at the last second, they pulled the plug.
Yeah.
Then I went through it again with another producer, then again with another producer. And then I was like, this is enough. So 10 years ago, I started with this guy. His name is Christian Broadhurst, and it's with Rare TV. He calls out of nowhere, and I literally just took the fights back like a couple weeks prior. And he's like, "Hey," I just pitched this, and he's like, "I didn't have a whole lot to pitch, and I just repitched this, and they want it. They want a show." And I'm like, I don't even know who the champs are at this point. Like, I don't even know. Coming out of COVID, like everything was a mess with the fights, with AFC. So I'm like, I'm trying just to get, a lot of the people that were my people got let go with the previous owner. So I'm like trying to get all my people back because I had a dream team of volunteers. We really do. And a lot of them are coming back. I'm so excited. But making all my phone calls, trying to get the band back together.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, I said, I don't even know what's going on. Like I don't even know what fighters to send you. So I started calling the gyms and just retouching base. I really didn't lose complete touch with them. But COVID was a weird time with everybody. There's people that came and left, and so I called Jordan, I called Ryder, and I called all the gym owners and said, hey, who are the guys? Who am I looking at? So we went through the casting process. They picked out a bunch of fighters they're interested in, and they're going to be in all the way from Fairbanks down to here, down to Anchorage. And so we're really excited about it. The Discovery has given the green light. So it's Discovery Channel, which is not Discovery Plus. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so Discovery said to Rare TV, which is the production house, said, hey, we want you to partner with Pilgrim. And as you guys know, Pilgrim is who produces The Ultimate Fighter.
Yep.
And they pretty much can put in front of Discovery whatever program they want. And now working with Pilgrim only makes them a stronger team.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a really kick-ass show.
Nice.
They're supposed to be filming this week. It got delayed, but we're looking at second week in February.
To when it starts filming.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And we're going to be having a show specifically only for the TV show. Mm-hmm. So we will be having an event that's just the guys that are going to be filmed on the show.
Okay.
And it will be at the Alaska Airlines Center. And so that is what I've been working on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's been insane trying to get everybody dialed in and lined up and everything, but we're not 100% there yet, but we're really, really close.
Nice.
And as close as we've ever been.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited about it. It's going to be a really good thing for the fighters. It's going to focus on the fighters in their training, in their element, their day jobs, the outdoors. It's going to have just that whole Alaska feel to it.
Yeah.
And they're covering some fighters that are going to be, a lot of people will know who they are. So they're all kind of being quiet right now, not talking about it, but I'm allowed to talk about it and get people excited about it. So we have that. I'm working on the UFC, trying to hold on to that deal.
To stay on Fight Pass,
stay
right?
on Fight Pass. We love you, Fight Pass, if you're watching this. So don't let us go.
Yep, I'm about to resubscribe.
Yeah, exactly. You want all these Alaskans to resubscribe.
Now that they bought ADCC, they have the Grappling Invitational. Like, I'm right there. I'm ready to resubscribe to Fight Pass.
Yeah, and what's crazy right now is like as the cable channels are like tanking, streaming is still like it's such an insane streaming because it got really big during COVID, so they got all this money and but try having an event during COVID. You can't get an arena.
Yeah.
I mean, our choices right now is the Sullivan Arena, which is a homeless shelter right now. Okay, so it's not even an option.
Yeah.
Alaska Airlines wasn't taking on anything. They fired the management company that was running it.
Okay.
And so they had nothing. They had no events. They're also a triage for the hospital for COVID. So they turned the whole Alaska Airlines Center into a triage.
Oh, wow.
It's like something like 150 beds or something like that was on so we couldn't get a spot, and that's always been the challenge. Now everything's open back up, but even to get dates, I really have one option, indoor option, and that's Alaska Airlines Center. Egan Center, they have contracts with Thursday Night the Fights. Denina Center, it's just not, arena is a better setup because everybody can see, it's not flat ground. With the cage set up the way it is, we really want to be an arena. So I've talked to John Dyson, who's the general manager of Alaska Airlines Center, and our plan is we're going to have a couple events, probably March, May-ish time frame. We'll be booking 2 events, and then we're going to be booking our whole season, September through May again. So we should be announcing some dates really soon. I was hoping to be able to announce them on your show, but I hadn't heard back from him by Friday. So he said he'd get back to me Friday, but I didn't hear back. So we'll be announcing him really soon. And so we're going to be having the events, aside from the events that we're going to be filming for the TV show. That's just going to be like our normal season.
Nice. And what was the the time frame for like the season, the months?
So we're looking to have an event in March and May, just a starter to get us going, and then run a season September through May.
I got you. Okay.
And that's what we've done historically. Was a season 8-date season is what we had. Taking off the month of December, I believe. But we're just, as soon as I know, there's limited options because the UAA athletics takes precedence over any other dates. So they're going to be on Wednesdays, just like we had them before. But we're returning to the Alaska Airlines Center officially. So I'm really excited about it and get this thing off the ground. We would have had shows sooner, but like I said, this TV show has kind of put a little crank in our situation. But I am not going to be matchmaking. I'm going to be assisting in matchmaking. Tommy Ida is going to be matchmaking for me. So the Potbelly Assassin.
Fighter, right?
Yep. He's going to be doing the matchmaking. He is not at any gym. He hasn't been at any gym training. So he's going to be the person helping me along with his wife, Gabby Ide. Gabby also fought. So they got married and just had a little fighter wedding. So it's just kind of funny. 2 fighters get together, but yeah, they're going to be helping me. I'm going to be hiring them to help me because obviously with this other business I have going, I didn't really anticipate taking this on. The AFC is a full-time job in itself, and what I got going on might be 2 full-time jobs. But I have my sister to back me up. Our mom works for us. Our brother works for us. My daughter was working for us. So hopefully. With their help, we can do this together and make it happen.
Yeah, well, we can't wait. So I was bummed, initially because I moved away, came back, and then got back into training up here, and just kind of found out like it wasn't really a thing because I was after I didn't fight anymore, which that was back in 2009 probably. Like I didn't really pay attention anymore. Like I still had plenty of friends who were fighters and training and doing all this, but like going and like just having it like on my mind, it's like, well, if I'm not gonna do it, it's like when I stopped playing like team sports, like I just didn't care about team sports anymore. Like I don't want to watch it, I don't want to go to it. Like that's just not in me anymore. Same thing, like if I do it, like I want to be 100% in. So if I can't be 100% in, I just have to kind of be all out. So like to find out like it wasn't even around anymore, I was like, oh man, like I wouldn't mind going and watching some fights. I wouldn't mind going and doing this. And so to hear it's back now, like I said, I mean, we can't wait. But we had, so we know about, when it's coming back, we found out like why you sold it. Now you're taking it back. When you had it before, there was just fights, right? When Nick had it, I think you brought in some grappling matches. Have you thought about doing that, like keeping grappling or something else in it?
So it is not going to be. I own an MMA promotion. I don't own a grappling promotion. I don't own a boxing promotion. I don't own a kids wrestling promotion.
Yeah.
So you're going to see MMA. But what I will do, like I did before, is I want to have intermissions. I want to highlight the other disciplines.
Nice. Okay.
And that's what we've done before. You know, we've done kids matches. We've done, other, the word is escaping me, but like just some, what's the word for, not dummy matches, but exhibition matches, some exhibition matches. Yeah. So like, I think that it's important to highlight the sports that are all included in MMA.
Yeah.
And they all have a place, because if you don't have them all together, we wouldn't have the sport of MMA. Yeah. So, I think that it's important to highlight those during intermissions. And so we've done that, but no, I don't think you should box in a cage. I don't think you should ever box in a cage. Yeah. Grappling's a little bit different, but, boxing, no, absolutely not. We have a cage, we have a full cage. And, when those guys get pinned up against the cage and you're getting pummeled with gloves, it's not like there's a reason that you box in a boxing ring. So you'll only be seeing MMA matches from us. Yeah.
And then some stuff in intermissions, which honestly probably works better. Like now that I think about it, because there's plenty of people that don't want to get up during intermission, right? Like I don't want to go whether it's like to lose your seat at certain events. Or everyone's going to the concession stand. Everyone's going to the bathroom. It's a horrible time to go to the bathroom. There's a line of 60 people. So like the people who just sit there and like, what am I going to do for 15 minutes? Or what am I going to do for 20 minutes? To have something to still just like visually keep my attention.
Entertainment.
Such a plus.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I do think that it's important to, once again, highlight those sports. But we want an MMA promotion. And I think that the thought behind that with Nick and Misty was, it'll be easier to get fighters. Okay. And because it's not easy to get fighters. And people, they'll judge you. Oh, that's not the best matchup. You try to match up guys when you only have 20 to pick from. It's not easy. And you try to do your best. And so I know that is difficult, but you have to work harder. And that's what it comes down to. I have friends all over the country that will come and fight. And I developed those relationships. I was just with one of them in Hawaii. I was just there for 2 weeks in Molokai with one of the coaches there. I brought guys from Hawaii. We've made it happen, whether it be Miles. I'm in a whole different place in my life. This is not my living. I don't make a living off of the fights. I make a living off of selling cannabis. So I'm not it doesn't have to support my family. So we're in a really good spot where let's get this thing to break even. Let's put some invest back into AFC and get those fighters to come up that can challenge our top guys, because nobody wants to see one of our top guys fight a bunch of bums that they shouldn't be fighting. And when I say bums, not that these guys are bums, they're just not an equal matchup for our top tier guys. So nobody wants to see that 100 times over and over again. And so it's important to bring outside blood for our top guys, because you have to do that, and you have to constantly be working towards that. And there's a lot of hungry guys out there that want the opportunity, because, we're the longest running mid-level promotion in the country. And people know who we are. And whether they make fun of us because we have lack of, you hear people, make fun of us. But what I say is any press is good press. And I was on Reddit like insane. Shout out to my Reddit peeps. But I was on Reddit insane and interacting with the Reddit people. They're talking shit and they were talking bad about me or whatever, but guess what? They're talking. And we had such a following, with this cult following on Reddit, that I even gave them for Christmas the Reddit MMA, for Christmas I slapped their logo on one of my posts in the cage. They went ape shit. They went absolutely crazy for Christmas. And we had people talking, and they thought it was so cool. And like all of a sudden we're just it's like a cult following with AFC, and we need to bring that back, because people do love AFC. There are good matches. And are they all good matches? No. They're not. But
does any promotion have all great matches?
That's right.
No.
And what I see is you watch two guys that fight each other, and it's so back and forth, and it's just such a good match, right? That doesn't mean they're the best guy. That means that the matchmaker did their job and matched them up evenly, because I've seen some of the lowest fighters on the beginning tier fighters have some of the best matches, because they're hungry. You match them both together. We can still have great fights. It doesn't have to be this high level match. You know what I mean? So I think that there's something for everyone that wants to fight, and it comes down to the matchmaker, and it's their job to place them together properly for a good fight.
Man, if you remember this to come back to later, there's like about the hungry fighters, like on the lower part of the card. I want to get back to that, because there was some stuff last night on the pay-per-view that was just kind of mind-blowing, and the matchmaking and everything was just great behind it. But you talked about matchmaking and pairing up fighters, especially like for this upcoming AFC season. We had the last two guests we had on. I think they were the last two, but we had the Mitchell brothers on, and then we had Jesse Hall, the Beautiful Savage. Shout out to all of you guys.
I love Jesse. I hope.
Oh, he's great.
I hope Jesse. Jesse, if you're watching this, please come back. Come back, because he's like yes, no. But I love watching him fight. Just his intensity and
he's
intense, he never. I don't think he ever fought for me. I think he was in when I wasn't at the helm, but just going as a fan, watching. I just love watching him fight. So and the Mitchell brothers. I mean, all of them. Those guys are great. So you've had some really great guests so far.
Yeah, I mean they're the best. Like I've known Maurice and Terrence for 15 years. Like I'm pretty sure they started out at Frontier Valley Tudo with me.
Yep.
After I just went in there randomly and started there, and then but before that we were training in our buddy's living room, moving couches out of the way.
Oh, I remember. I went over when Terrence was, I think he was like 18, 17 maybe. Yeah. I think before he could even legally fight.
Yeah.
Shout out to Danny and Matt with Frontier Valley Tudo.
Yes.
I don't even... Modern day MMA fans with AFC don't know who they are.
They don't know who Danny Malin is. Yeah. And they need to, because like Danny's done big things, and he brought me in and helped me out, and man, just like one of those things, just like
I missed him.
Internally, like forever grateful to him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I am forever grateful for him getting things going, and it's like you got. When I first started with the fights, I went into the ABJJ where it was like just right behind Moose's Tooth Pizza, just like a little hallway, and I dreaded going in there every single time because it was so sweaty and so wet in there. It was just
what it was? Was it ABJJ back there? Mm-hmm. Off of like 30th or 33rd off Denali Street?
Yes, so ABJJ and Gracie Baja were together.
Yeah.
And then they split. And so Ryder and Justin left Gracie, which was actually the best thing for AFC.
Yeah.
Because at that time, there was only one gym, and it was Gracie Baja. Yeah. And so it was really hard to get opponents and people to fight each other. So even though it was not a good thing for, Gracie at the time, in the long run, it was really, really good.
Yeah.
And Ryder and Justin did big things with ABJJ, but I remember walking into this, and all these guys are they're like, who the hell is this chick? Like, this was at the beginning, and I had to earn the respect, and I was already a fan. They knew who I was. I was sponsoring them with my mortgage business at the time, and they had this tournament. I don't know if you remember the tournament, but it was like a 4-man tournament, and I remember Rob Yunt, Seth Skogstad, Kevin Barber, and Ben Meebs were on that team.
Yeah.
And they all got hurt.
Yeah.
And I gave him a bunch of money. Rob tore out his shoulder. Seth Skogstad broke his hand, I think. But it was this tournament it was like a $10,000 winner-take-all tournament for the guys.
Yeah.
And so there was like the Foot Soldiers and Gracie Baja and ABJJ. They all had these teams, which I love that format because I'm a pride-loving.
Yes.
It's Pride's one of my favorite organizations, and RIP Pride.
For good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like that's what it reminded me of was like a Pride tournament,
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of got in, and the guys started getting to know me because at that time I just donated a bunch of money to them because they were all hurt, and I was like, these guys are making $500 and they have a $20,000 surgery ahead of them,
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of got to know them. But it was very hard to break that barrier with the guys because you have to earn respect. They don't just give it to you.
Yeah.
And it took me many, many, many years, and even still to this day, it's like sometimes I have to tell guys to fuck off.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. It's either my way or the highway.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of them have problems dealing with.
Yeah.
And I try to be reasonable, but my fight pay, this or that. It's like, until you see me driving around in a Bentley, don't be asking me for what this absurd amount of money. These small regional promotions cannot pay you what you want to be paid. Yeah. I want to pay you $10,000 a fight. Yeah. Believe me, I do.
Yeah. And honestly, like once you get into the UFC, like, you're probably still not making what you think you need to be making.
Yeah, I just looked at, it was like the 14 and 14 or something.
Is that what it is?
Like, well,
we had this
like the beginning. Like, I just saw like one of the first time fighters, or like not first time, but like the guy had a fight or two.
Yeah.
14 grand to show, 14 to win.
I think that's what they enter in now, which obviously is much better. Like when when it first became a big issue, like it was like 7-7.
Yeah.
Which, hey, that's pretty low, especially like to fight at that level. But at the same time, you're fighting like you're first on the undercard. You're doing this, like they don't know who you are. You're still probably making more than you made on the regional scene.
Absolutely, yeah.
But then it like became 10-10, and like I had this conversation with Terrence and Maurice last time. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's like 14-14 now. And they're like, no, it's 10-10. It's like, well, you guys are a lot closer to being in the UFC than I am. You'd probably know.
Yeah. I think it changes all the time, and there are some additional, bonuses and things that get paid. But it's not a whole lot. You got to do well. But also, when you start a job, you're not going to be paid at the top tier.
No.
So when these guys come in and they fought 1 or 2 times, and they're like, I want main event pay, and I'm like, you're high.
It's kind of like what you're talking about, like the respect thing. Like you don't just get the respect. Like you have to earn it. Like if you want that giant paycheck, you still have to earn it. Like you are coming in at like let's just say the entry level.
Right.
So, I mean,
it's just like, it's like minimum wage. You know, that's what I explain it like.
Yeah.
You're the first time fighter. You are fighting for minimum wage, and the minimum wage of whatever the minimum wage, because we said it. It's like, this is what you come in at. This is what you're getting paid. You're not getting paid any different from these guys, but we will incentivize you. We pay you to sell tickets, and we pay you very well. 20% of your ticket sales goes into your purse. That's very, very generous. There's not a lot of places you can go and make a 20% commission off the bat. It's like, go out, tell your friends, sell tickets, and we'll pay you for it. You know, because it makes my job a little bit easier, and you're making money. We had fighters that would make $5,000 to $10,000 in ticket sales.
Nice.
So
that's a deal.
That's what it is.
And all you have to do is go talk to your friends. And now like social media is way bigger than it was like
even 10 years ago.
When I was finding 10 or 12 or more years ago. Like there was no like Instagram and Facebook, and you couldn't.
You knocked on people's doors. Hey, you want to buy some tickets from me? You know. But that's why I don't feel bad. It's like, I know what it takes to do this. I took this company from it made zero. It actually was way negative. They sold this thing to me like it was a money making situation. Cooked the books on it.
Because if it was some giant money making situation, they probably wouldn't have sold it to you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I sold a building that I had, and me and my dad went halves with it. And then working with my dad, I was like, okay, I can't. So I love you, Dad, but you're out. So I took it over 100% myself. And you know, of course, my parents are super supportive and, you know, encouraging, but I needed to do it because I needed to make decisions and I needed to make things happen without having, you know, partners in it. So it was a good thing at the beginning just to kind of go do this by myself and make things happen. But it needed rebranding. It needed a bunch of things. And along the way, I've learned so much about marketing and social media. I mean, we were one of the first companies in Alaska to have more than 20,000 Facebook likes when Facebook was still a thing, when you needed like a edu address or whatever. I couldn't even get it when Facebook first came out because I didn't have a college email address. And then they said, okay, we'll make it to the general public. So I opened up an account and started, I'm like, I'm going to push this, whatever this is, I'm going to push this. And that's how I'm going to build my business. And that's what I did through Facebook with contesting. You know, I think we have 25 or so thousand people that follow AFC, which is huge, even still to this day. Like, to build a following like that is not easy. And I think that with social media, it's propelled us and helped us, you know, obviously with the business. Because without it, what are you going to put a radio ad or you know, a newspaper ad, which these days don't even work anymore.
I don't
it's
even
not
know
even
if the newspaper's a thing anymore.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. They call me every once in a while asking me to put in an ad. I'm like, a print ad?
And even on the radio, that's got to be kind of dying off. I mean, I bet people still listen to the radio, but like for their 10-minute drive to work.
I love you, Bob Lester, but I don't listen anymore. I have my customized playlist, you know, of like what I like to listen to.
People are streaming. You know, that's what it is now. Man, but so back to the matchmaking thing. And real quick, you mentioned the foot soldiers. I haven't heard that in over a decade, I feel like.
I love I love those guys. And Joe Finoti, and well, Ali's still around. Like, Ali still has he does kickboxing. I'm not sure where he's at these days.
I'm pretty sure he's at Legacy.
Is he at Legacy? Well, he was at Legacy, but then he left. Maybe he's back.
I only go at 6 in the morning.
So okay. I think he was teaching kickboxing somewhere. But like I said, I've been out of it for so long. I don't know who's who, but I know Ali's still around. You know, Micah Graff's still around. But those guys, I just loved the Pacific Islander fighters. I've always had a special place in my heart for those guys, and they're just warriors. They are born fighting. You know, and that's a lot of my friends are you know, Native Hawaiian or Samoan, Tongan. I got a lot of friends that live on the islands, and I've just developed these relationships with them. And like I said, I just spent 2 weeks on Molokai with some of the toughest guys around, and I can't wait to bring some of them back. We're going to bring some Molokai guys up. They come from a similar situation like us. There's only 6,000 people on the island, and they're training in their backyards with heavy bags, and you know,
especially that island. Like it's not like one of the major destination islands, right? Like it's not one that people are flocking to.
No, super rural. It's super rural
one just off the coast of another one. Like,
off the coast of Maui. But I'll tell you, it's the most magical place. Don't go there, because I'm gonna keep going there. So, but there's it was very magical. I mean, like the hunting, you know, because when we travel, we hunt, we fish. That's what I like to do. So if I'm traveling somewhere, it's usually to catch a fish or kill something. So we got to go deer hunting. We went freshwater prawning in the streams there in Molokai, like at night with a headlamp. One of the craziest things I've ever done. These guys are tough. They're tough like Alaskans, and that's why I just feel very connected with Hawaii. You know, they're my family, just like the Alaskan fighters are. So
nice. So the Jesse, Maurice, and Terrence, they all had like one thing in common. And so I think they were like maybe the only like real fighters that have come on so far. I mean, we have some jiu-jitsu guys that come on, but in this specific instance, they all had one thing in common, and it was people like they couldn't get fights. And this was Jesse's big thing of why he's just kind of not interested in fighting anymore. Terrence has been out for a long time with injuries and kind of the same thing, but like they just can't get fights with people dodging them and just not taking fights with them. So they can't kind of propel themselves, like keep going forward because no one is willing to take that fight. Is there something like to be done about that? Like, how do you guys get around that? And,
easy. You get contracts. You get fighters. You have them sign them. You don't just go off a handshake.
Yeah.
You go and set them up. You figure out what, and you make sure that the fights, listen, I've had my fair share of fights fall apart, but I've also had, I would say for percentage wise, these guys a lot less fall apart.
Yeah.
And so I think it comes down to communication. It comes down to being very clear with the fighters of what to expect, be upfront what they're getting paid. I think that's another thing that has, and this is just me hearing it through the grapevine, them fighting in other places in Alaska, not just Wasilla, Anchorage, all over the state. I know Melinda's doing big things up in Fairbanks.
Solid as a rock. Right?
Yep, and her and I are working very closely together.
Awesome, great.
Shout out to Melinda. You're awesome. But she is very professional. She gets the fights together. She knows what it takes. And so I think that what it comes down to is finding fights, solidifying them. Everything's up front. You got to be up front. There's no backdoor weird, I said I was going to pay you this. And, it's all based off handshakes. So what happens is a lot of times they make it sound like, oh, it's the fighter's fault or they backed out. Most of the time it's the promoter's fault.
Yeah.
You got to get everything in writing, get your contract signed, communicate with the guys. Jesse and Terrence aren't backing out of fights.
Yeah.
And guys that are in their like top tier, the top tier guys like that don't back out of fights.
Yeah.
So what's happening is they're setting up fights with these guys that they probably shouldn't be fighting in the first place.
Yeah.
And they get scared. They get worried. People start talking to them. Their friends are like, "Oh, that's too tough of a fight." Their coach is like, "Why'd you take that fight?"
Yeah.
Like just being transparent and open and communicating with the coaches first.
Yeah.
Is so important because the coaches are going to know if these guys are ready or not. When I talk to Matt or Ryder or Jordan, they know where these guys are at.
Yeah.
They know who they should be fighting and who they shouldn't be fighting. Now, do they want easier fights? Of course. You don't want to see your guy get beat up.
So Chael Sonnen said it best. Like, he wants the easiest fight for the most amount of money.
If
that's like a guy fighting for the UFC world title, like, let's be honest, like that should be everyone's goal.
That's
like,
right.
I want the easiest fight
for the most amount of money.
Right?
Yeah, 90% of the guys are going to want that. Then you have the crazies like Jesse Hull who will literally fight anybody, and he's crazy, and I love him. That's why I like him because he's a Chuck Liddell in my mind, and Chuck Liddell is like my hero. Chuck and Randy Couture are my heroes, but yeah, so 90% of them are going to want the easiest fight for the most amount of money.
Yeah.
And so you got to kind of battle with that a little bit. But if you have respect for each other, like I said, with the coaches, they're going to say, yes, these guys are ready for this fight or that fight, and just be very transparent. Start with the coaches because most fighters have something to prove, and they'll want to take those fights regardless of if they're ready for it or not.
Yeah. And
it doesn't do anybody it's a disservice to the fighter, it's a disservice to the fans, and it's a disservice to the opponent. Nobody wants to go and just, I guarantee you that fight with Lauren, her opponent didn't want to go in there and just kill her. No. You know what I mean? No, you want a challenging, fair fight.
Yeah.
Because people are going to talk and they're going to go,
yeah.
Well, who are you fighting? Why are you fighting that chump? Like,
yeah.
Not that Lauren's by any means, but I'm saying in the local promotions, you see these guys go in and just maul somebody.
But like I've seen you like even just training like way back when or training at Legacy, like I've seen you inside gyms talking to like coaches in the gym.
Oh, I go into the gym.
That.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. Like you said, like it kind of starts with the promoter and just having that like
your matchmaker needs to see
them.
That's right. Because the coach could say this guy is ridiculously good, and I can go in and watch a guy grapple and go, okay, if I put him with this guy, it's going to be about a 2-second fight. He's going to choke him out, and it's going to be over. Like, your grappling has to be the same. Your wrestling has to be the same. Not the same, but similar. These classic, like, boxer versus grappler matches, they don't sell. No. They're not going to sell. I mean, of course, in a perfect world, you want to see which one's going to be tougher, right? Yeah. Like, but you got to have it's MMA. It's not boxing. It's not wrestling. It's not jiu-jitsu. It's MMA. And you have to be well-rounded.
Even on the local scene now, like if you're just a boxer or you're just a grappler, like it's probably just not going to go well. Like maybe if you are finding that chump to fight, But like, man, if you want to be like the title holder in like the AFC or Ace or Solid as a Rock, like you can't just be like, I train boxing.
Yeah, you have to be well-rounded. And it back in the day, the Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture days, like it was fine. Randy was a wrestler. Like, you know, he wasn't maybe the most exciting fighter, but he's one of the best human beings you'll probably ever meet. Yeah. And that's why I love Randy Couture. And then Chuck's just psycho, and he goes in there with his chin sticking out and just starts throwing haymakers and like landing them and knocking people out. Yeah. So that's over.
Yeah,
that's been over.
Oh, for sure.
Now we have Adesanya. We got these well-rounded, this just insane John Jones. I mean,
yeah. Did you watch? Because you left the fights partway through, and then you came back for the main event. But did you watch the Brandon Moreno fight and Figueiredo?
I saw the highlights of it, and so it's on my DVR. But I had to watch the main event because my husband never gets excited about fights, and I'd ran errands, and he goes, the text says, you have to come watch this main event.
Yeah.
Like,
it was good,
and he never says that. So he goes, seriously, come home. Like, you have to see this. And he had it all queued up, like rewound. And he goes, do you want to watch the other ones? I go, let's just watch this one. He goes, guess what round's my favorite? You know, he loves the gapers. Like, you know, when the guys, I can't handle it. Like blood and stuff like that for me is just not.
Yeah. Glover looked rough after that one too.
Yeah. Like, it looked like hamburger meat.
They could have stopped that fight any round after round 3.
Yeah.
Like in round 2, it was so good. I was telling my buddy, I was like, this would be such a treat if this went all 5 rounds like this. And then it went to round 4. I was like, they could probably stop this for Glover right now. Yeah. But like his last fight, like I assumed it was his last fight, like just because he's like 43, maybe 44 now. It's been around forever. And then Shogun just retired. I was like, no, even if he wins this fight, he should probably retire. And then luckily he did, but like rounds 4 and 5 just went downhill for him. But round 5,
I was like, because my husband goes, and he's like, I'm not going to tell you what happens. I'm not going to tell you what happened. I'm like, okay. So I'm like seeing him, and he gets a takedown. I'm like, oh, he's working. Oh, he's full. I'm like looking at my husband's just smirking like this. Yep. I'm like, oh, it's gonna happen. He's gonna win. And then it didn't. And then he like looked at me. He was like. Yeah. He's like, it was close. But I'm like, I was like the build up. I was like,
but such a treat though, because like it went down, and then round 5, you're like, it's gonna come back up. This is gonna happen. He's gonna go out on top, get the belt, retire, and then just let them deal with the 205 belt after. But the Figueiredo and Moreno fight, and because you touched on it a little bit earlier, like when Jamal Hill got super emotional after, right? Yeah. When Moreno won the belt off of him versus Davison 2. It was one of those super emotional ones. Like when Rose won the belt and like they walk around the cage for a second. It doesn't even hit him that they just won the world championship. And then you see it come over and they break down and he's crying holding the belt and he's screaming like Viva Mexico. Yeah. That was one of those ones like.
Did you see him I saw the clip of them getting him out of there.
Yeah.
They're like throwing cokes and all that.
To, like cover him up.
Yeah, they're like covering his whole body but then they all left. Before Glover retired
immediately,
and it's just like this. It's like this empty arena. Like, give the guy I mean, I guess he retired in front of the whole world on TV.
Yeah,
but
at the same time, like it's kind of your hometown guy. Like you want to see it.
Yeah.
But man, like, and Moreno was like one of those ones. Like he just holds like that special part in my heart because he was on the 125-pound season
with Demetrius.
Lost his fight.
Yep.
Had a fight in the UFC while the reality show is still on.
Yep.
Loses a couple fights in the UFC, gets cut. Comes back, says he's gonna win the championship one day,
and he did.
And then he comes back and wins.
No, he's a comeback kid. No, definitely. And his agent, you know, his manager, is Jason House, and I mean he got behind that kid and helped him so much, and I respect that with these guys. There's some really good managers that are in the game right now. Iridium Sports Management is one of them, and then Sucker Punch, you know, and they both took home titles last night. So it was really cool to see Brian Hamper, this guy get, you know, Hill won and then Brandon, you know, for Jason House. So it's cool to see these guys as comeback kids and come back and take the belt. And I think that's possible for any fighter. It's possible for Lauren. Definitely. It's possible for Jared Cannonier. Yeah. It's possible for our guys. So I'm really excited, hopefully for both of them to get the second shot.
Yeah, we can't wait. So, you know, went over the vetting process doing this. How do people sign up? Obviously, like, you're going into gyms, and I'm sure Tommy will be going into gyms to checking out fighters, and of course this who you guys already know, but is there a way for just kind of like anyone to sign up that maybe isn't, you know, directly under like one of these coaches or doing this or has like a direct contact to you?
And you don't need a coach. You do not need a coach. You do not need a gym. If you're self-trained, we take a lot of people like that too, you can go to the website, alaskafighting.com.
Okay,
and there
so
is,
still there.
Yep, it's still there, and it's being revamped, currently being revamped right now. But there is still an application on there. That's a good way to contact me. And it's okay to still contact me.
Yeah.
What I do ask is don't contact me through Facebook and Instagram and all these other these avenues, because I can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
We get a lot of people call, through our Instagram or Facebook, hey, I want to fight, or I want to fight this person. And it's just, unfortunately, I'm too busy to answer. So the best way is cell phone.
Yeah.
Or email.
Yeah.
That's just the easiest way. And the AFC number is still the same phone number. I do have the phone. Right now it's going to voicemail, and I'll return all the messages here soon.
Yeah.
But it's listed on our website. So they can always shoot a text over to the AFC phone. It's not super quick response, but it will get back to you. And
Nice.
so that's the best way, probably through our website. And then also just go ahead and shoot a text to the AFC phone number.
Perfect. All right. So keep them one spot, email, that phone number, but not social media, all that stuff. Yeah,
social media is just hard because when I have a personal life, like we all do.
Exactly, and that's what you want it to be for, right? There's an AFC page, there's the website, so go to those. Don't bother about fight stuff.
The people are bothering me right now, like, hey, I want to fight, match this up, as soon as I announced it, they're on my personal page, like blowing me up, and it's like, I respect that. I'm glad you're excited. I am too, but like, it's just too much. And but I want to do a giveaway.
Yes.
And we'll, so I'm really excited that you guys are doing this grappling podcast, because I think that it's going to bring so much more awareness just to the sport in the state anyway. Yeah. There's so much cool stuff going on with the jiu-jitsu state championships twice a year. And, we do a lot with them too, but, I have a couple Jared Cannonier shirts. So this is his new shirt, the Killer Gorilla, and I have one that I brought here, and I want to do a giveaway, and I'm going to let you guys dictate how this goes. But you have to follow the Grappler podcast.
Yep. So we're going to figure out exactly what you have to do, but it'll be something like liking and following it, sharing the post. But if you guys don't know who the Killer Gorilla is, do your research. Alaskan bred fighter, just fought Israel for the title, the middleweight divisions, fought in 3 weight classes, was
our heavyweight champ,
if not knockouts in 3 weight classes in the UFC.
Yep.
Former heavyweight champ, the Alaska Fighting Championships, and that's why we have Sarah here bringing it back, and just one of the many guys that can go on. And we will give that away to figure out someone. We'll make a post about it. If you want to tell everyone where they can find you one more time, where they can figure out how to sign up for fights, and any info on the AFC when they want to look that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Our website's alaskafighting.com, and we're on every social media platform. I'm in the process of opening a TikTok now. I'm getting there. But at Alaska Fighting on Facebook, Instagram, you can find us there. And then you can find me on Instagram at just Sarah May. I was AFC Sarah, but now I'm just Sarah May today.
All right.
And, wearing many hats with the fights and with my cannabis business. So you can find me there. And I appreciate you guys having me on.
Awesome. We appreciate you coming on. We can't wait to see what happens with AFC coming back. And we're excited.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.